So, Andy, a lot of your questions are around, well, I get the feeling that projects where they've gone wrong in the ground. Just interested in what your experiences around that space may look like, just for context.
So what I do is I'm a planner. I draw lines on a piece of paper and I process a lot of delays. But I've come across a lot of delays, and most of those delays, the start of the delays come from ground risk.
Yep.
Extension of piles being a key one, increase in the quantity of piles. Yep. So from my perspective, I process the delay. Yep. But the problem I have with that is the design only picks up the need for the additional piles or the additional pile length after the design's complete, after the IFCs are issued. So I'm not sure why that happens. So from my perspective, I go, oh yeah, piling length's increased. Cool. Now I'm going to portion the production rate to it, increase the quantity, impact the critical path. Here's your impact. All right.
And these changes are occurring after the construction contract is awarded and once the contract is on the ground.
Once the piling guys have started on the ground.
Yeah, that's when it's expensive, right?
It's crazy expensive at that point. It's insane at that point. Like think about it. Now the piling contractor's got to order additional piles. Yep. Change in methodology. Project's running late, right? The main contractor is scrambling to find additional resources.
Yep.
Call up your piling contractor and go, hey mate, you got another piling crew for me?
Yeah.
And then you go, right, shit, now I've got fucking 2 piling rigs. Sorry. I'm not allowed to say.
Yeah.
I got 2 piling rigs on site and I've got to manage the space on site. It's logistics constraints. Right. There's a whole heap of other things that the main contractor hasn't worked out, right? Suddenly he's got to work out in a span of 5 days to then keep up to the program.
Sure.
Yep. So why does that happen that late in the piece? Like that's quite interesting for me. I see the back end of it. I don't fully have the knowledge of why that happens so late in the piece.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to know though.
Yes, so would I. don't.
So would you?
Yeah, look, I think I can probably talk to it a little bit. Often in Auckland is tricky, right? So you might have on one side of your site soft ground, and that's the need for piling that structure because the settlements are unacceptable and you need to found it on something more competent. And on the other side of that same site, you might have really strong, hard basalt at the ground surface. So getting the foundation solution right can be quite tricky on certain sites. And understanding how hard that basalt is absolutely key because that will blow out your program. If you've got downhole hammers operating and it's taking twice as long, 10 times as long to dig that rock out, it might have been better just to do a pad foundation in that corner of the site. So look, liaison and team environments in those tricky sites, probably any site when it comes to construction, is key. And that's where, I couldn't advocate more strongly for rapport amongst your geotechnical designers, your structural designers, your civil designers, and your contractor. And a lot of the time, contract procurement won't permit the contract to be involved at that early point, but having a good rapport and working with everyone rather than in a protracted contractual sense. The amount of times problems just get accentuated because everyone covers their own butts, really, rather than, look, this is a team, let's all roll up our sleeves and get the job done, best for project. Well, don't worry about your liability. It's easy to say, but just get the job done. And the outcome will always be way better than everyone just looking after their own little section of the job.
Yeah. But okay, just talk about how that entire scenario works, right? So you got basalt in the ground, you got cool. So you got down the hole hammer, break through the basalt, cool. Get your piling in. Yep. The pile hits solid surface and pretty much you then put your ground beams. Yep. The ground beams are supported by the pile then at that point, aren't they? Yep. So they're really supported by the pile. So even if you have minor settlement on the ground, okay. Yep. It's not ideal, but doesn't really matter at that point.
No.
Cool. So the whole geotech aspect there is understanding how deep your piling has to go, isn't it?
And understanding how deep it is at a certain location, because you might have a 20 meter deep pile at one point and a 5 meter deep pile at another.
Yep.
So back to a point I made earlier about at the start of a geotech investigation stage, might be a resource consent, you'll do the bare minimum because the geotech is competitive and you don't have budget to do a large scope. But making sure that scope is progressed throughout the different stages of the project. So when it comes to detailed design and building consent, you need a lot more investigation, and you may need more between that stage and construction. If a piling project is coming out and there's, 100 piles on a site, and they've got maybe 10 locations where they know what the ground conditions are, how can you say there's no risk? There is risk.
Absolutely.
You could be the best engineer and geologist, geotechnical engineer in the world, and you can predict what you think the ground conditions are going to be between. Really, we don't know. Well, we do have an idea, but that's where surprises come. So, to put a CPT rig or, cone penetrometer rig that just pushes a cone in the ground and finds out the ground conditions or where the depth to heart is, spend a day doing that at a whole bunch more pile locations can be money well spent.
So
prior to,
okay,
yeah.
Typically, how many times do you get called for investigations? So do you get called at concept design? Yes?
Absolutely. You get invited to tender at that stage. Yep.
You get invited to tender. Cool. Then the design's now progressed. You move on to developed and detailed design or prelim design. Skip prelim.
Yep.
Which stage do you get called in for more investigations?
Well, often it's building consent is you'll always get another crack at it because it's a process that goes through a regulatory body like a council issuing a consent.
Yep.
So you get the chance to dictate what investigation needs to be done to apply for a building consent.
At detailed design.
That'll be at detailed design stage. Absolutely. Yep. And so that's really the last opportunity from a process point of view that you're given an opportunity to do investigations.
Yep.
Between there and construction,
Absolutely.
You may say in your report that you need to do more, or you may not. But in my experience, not a lot is done after that detailed design stage prior to construction, so unless the contractor specifies it or does it under their own contract price.
Yeah, because what happens once that detailed design is issued is it goes straight to the main contractor, and the contractor starts developing his methodology. He starts putting an entire program together. That's where I come into play.
Yep.
And then you start procuring contractors. So if the main contractor, how many main contractors would call you in between that phase and before they even procure a piling contractor?
I'll look in the civil infrastructure and roading space.
Yep.
Probably all the time.
Cool. Yeah, and they probably need to. They don't have a choice.
Yeah, I think so. And generally it's a much larger project with a much larger budget, and so they spend a bit of money.
Yep.
To put their tender together.
Yep.
So
and
it's just the way it is.
And it's taxpayer funded.
Yeah, totally.
Yep. It's not privately funded, so it makes a big difference.
Yep. But it's part of business in that space from our experience. It's just it's what's done. It's what's been done for a long time. In the vertical build space, much less. Though I would say, in my experience, probably 10% of the time, I see additional investigations being done by the contractor between detailed design and construction.
Can I just dig into the value for a contractor in doing that between detailed design and actually starting piling on site, getting that geotech investigation done a lot earlier? What's the value for the contractor if they call you in between those time periods?
It's probably the value for the client rather than for the contractor. If the
hang on. No.
Depends what tags they're putting in their tender, right?
Yep. So here you got a designer, right? The designer's gone, cool. You're not going to have any more pile length increases. We've done our geotech investigation, mate. It's on point. Yep. Guess what? It's never on point. You and I both know it's never on point. Yep. Okay, cool. You start piling, it's in delay, and the contract is now signed up to a fixed price or whatever with an end date, and ask me how difficult it is to get EOTs.
Yep, sure. Okay.
So it's not the easiest thing to do.
Right.
You're having a shift fight with an engineer all the time. I say engineer, I mean engineer to the contract. Yep. It's not the easiest thing. That's why a lot of main contractors spend a lot of time getting their programs right in the first place, or they try to. Yep. Well, we try to. Yeah. But so it's a risk for the contractor and for the client.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, it's a risk to both of them.
Sure.
Yeah. Because the client doesn't get his building on time.
Yes.
But then the client's protected by the liquidated damages that the main contractor pays. So
sure.
So where the risk sits is it's an
interesting
conversation.
So you've signed yourself up to a lump sum contract with LDs. Okay.
Yep.
So in that case, the contractor covers his risk by spending minimal money just to, if it's a piling job, for instance, do more tests at each pile location. It sounds extreme, and it may be extreme for some sites, we've had experiences on jobs where we've had, you've got a rectangular shaped building, not particularly big, might be 50 meters long by 20 meters wide. And we've got 5 tests, right? You do 1 test in each corner, 1 in the middle. Seems reasonable.
Okay, so is that really expensive for a main contractor to do?
Not really, no. Not in terms of his contract price. It's
No,
not.
when you compare the contract price, you just go, okay, actually, let's compare it to something else. Compare it to his liquidated damages.
Yeah, no, it just doesn't even compare, right?
Doesn't even compare?
No.
So it just makes sense to get more geotech investigation done the minute they ink their contract.
Absolutely. Why not? You might pay 7 or 8 grand for a CPT rig for a day to go and push some probes in the ground.
Yep.
So you can tell me that that's not much money in terms of LDs.
Yep, it's not. Sorry, I just did the math in my head. No, it's not.
Yeah.
So you said 7 or 8 grand per day for a CPT. And how many CPTs would you do in a day?
Look, it does depend on the ground conditions, but you might get, if you're going 20 meters, you might get 8 or 10 done or something like that.
So if I only had 100 piles, I'm technically paying you, 50, 60 grand? That's a day's worth of LDs for me.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
So yeah, a little bit of expenditure up front can save a lot of pain for sure.
Yeah.
But look, that'll tell you the depth to those hard ground conditions. It might not necessarily tell you how hard it is, right? That's just pushing a probe to hard ground. So
yeah.
It doesn't get rid of all the risks. It certainly helps.
Can I ask you then, why is it not done at design stage? When you get to you've done your concept design, you know your pile locations. Yep. Okay. So then why wouldn't I send a CPT down every single pile location at design stage?
I guess there's budget allowances. I can't look. I'm not an asset owner. I'm not a developer. But I guess there's budget constraints around every stage. The original concept design, you have a certain budget, and you do bare minimum, and then at detailed design stage, you'll have a certain budget, and the geotech often it may still be competitive, or it may then by that stage have a robust team that's just going straight to the sole source. But I guess it's budget. Everyone's concerned or aware of what they're spending of the client's money. So the less you can do and still provide a robust ground model in the designer's mind, the better, I suppose. But it's not traditional to do an investigation at every pile location. The only time I've seen it is when a contractor's requested it or done it off their own bat.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? Sorry, man, I'm just beating some ideas around to actually get a better understanding of what happens in your world, which is sure. It's really good insights. I'm loving it. It's cool.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.